The data analyst job most people are preparing for right now is already gone, and almost nobody realizes it. You're still collecting certificates, building recycled portfolios, and stacking outdated skills that companies quietly stop hiring for. Meanwhile, the people actually getting hired are showing up with a completely different skill set. The opportunity in data did not disappear, it just moved. And in this video, I'm going to break down the 4-pillar skill stack that replaced the old path and why the traditional approach keeps smart people stuck. To all my subscribers, welcome back. Now, if this is your first time here, I'm Kadisha, and 6 years ago, I was delivering pizzas and Amazon packages for $8 an hour. And today, I'm running a community of over 80,000 current and aspiring data professionals, and I've helped thousands of other career changers break into data analytics without going back to school and wasting money on courses that just don't work. And if you ever want to work with me to land your first job in data analytics, click the link in the description. So let's dive in. Okay, so pillar 1, the data builder. This is the foundation and the layer that about 90% of aspiring analysts skip entirely. The data builder doesn't just build SQL. The data builder is asking a completely different question. How do I build a system that delivers clean, reliable data to people who need it and set it up so it runs automatically instead of requiring someone to rebuild it every Monday morning? This matters because most companies are still sitting on messy, fragmented data, inconsistent formats, duplicates everywhere, and a system that doesn't talk to each other. Research puts the cost of poor data quality of about 12 million to 15 million per organization per year. That's a problem sitting on someone's desk right now, and the analyst who walks in and solves it doesn't need to beg for a callback. Historically, analysts spend about 60 to 80% of our time preparing data alone. Not necessarily analyzing, not generating insights, just firefighting. The data builder breaks that cycle by automating the preparation itself. Uber proved this when they built an internal tool that writes SQL 3 times faster than their analysts, saving millions a year. Not replacing anyone, but eliminating the repetitive groundwork so their people could focus on the thinking and strategy. In practical terms, this means SQL that goes beyond the basic select statements. CTEs, window function subqueries, store procedures, plus Python scripting that cleans, transforms, and schedules data work on a recurring basis. Not machine learning, automation, and basic ETL concepts, extract, transform, load. Every time you automate a report someone was building manually, you're saving that company's hundreds of hours a year. That's the kind of tangible impact that gets you hired and gets you raises. When I made my own pivot into data, this was the unlock. I wasn't the strongest at coding, but I could take a chaotic data set that made everyone else freeze up and turn it into something clean and usable. That edge separated me from almost every other applicant who could say, I just know SQL. One of my students had a similar path, came from logistics, never coded before, but focused on specifically cleaning and automating data workflows. Within a few months, she landed a role as a process analyst. So here's a positioning shift most people miss. Everyone is competing for data analyst roles by submitting pretty dashboards. Almost no one is competing with, I can build and automate processes. That's a completely different lane with less competition and higher pay. Okay, next up, the insight engine. Now that the data is clean and flowing, this is where most people think the real job begins. But they're actually partially right, but missing something critical. The insight engine isn't about making pretty charts in Tableau or Power BI. It's about asking the right question and finding the pattern no one else noticed and presenting it in a way that makes a VP stop and say, we need to act on this. I reviewed hundreds of portfolios, and the most common problem that I see is what I call a data dump. 10 charts just crammed into one page with no narrative, no direction, and no recommendation. Research shows that people are 22 times more likely to remember a story than a standalone statistic. That means your beautifully formatted slide with 6 KPIs and color-coded legend is missing the room while everyone else's plain narrative is closing the deals. Every insight you deliver needs to answer 3 questions. What happened, why it matters, and what the business should do about it. If your analysis doesn't end with a clear recommendation, it's simply not finished. Beyond that, you need consulting-style slide decks. Clean, executive-ready presentations that walk a decision maker through your logic without a follow-up meeting needed to decode it. And advanced Excel. Power Query, pivot tables, dynamic dashboards, because it still runs a business world whether people in tech admit it or not. I think about this through what I call the Steph Curry effect. Steph Curry, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, didn't just change how people shoot from deep. He changed the geometry of the entire game. His gravitational pull forces defenders to spread thin, which opens up shots and driving lanes for his teammates even in possessions where he never touches the ball. That is what a great storyteller does. Your insights doesn't just answer one question that someone asks, they create a space for the entire organization to see opportunities that wouldn't have been visible otherwise. My student, Caitlin, is a perfect example. She transitioned from teaching into a finance analyst role, not because she had the most complex Tableau dashboards, but because every project that she posted on LinkedIn told a complete story. Here's a problem, here's what I found, and here's what the business should do. A recruiter found that portfolio, reached out directly, and literally within a week she had an offer. If your portfolio reads like a textbook, you've lost. If it reads like a conversation about a real problem that you solve, that makes you unforgettable. Okay, so next up, this is the layer that separates the 60K analyst from the 120K analyst. And the interesting thing about it is that almost nothing to do with technical skills. The business strategist thinks like an owner, not an employee, before they ever even open a data set. They're asking questions most analysts skip. What is the problem that we're actually solving? Who's going to use this analysis to make a decision? And what happens if that decision goes wrong? And how do we measure whether any of this is actually moving the needle? The reason why this is so valuable is that most organizations have a fundamental gap between the technical side and the business side. People who are good at data often can't communicate with stakeholders, and people who understand the business can't build technical solutions. When you can do both, you become the bridge, and bridges in this market are rare. Think Shohei Ohtani, the first player to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in a single season while also pitching at an elite level in Major League Baseball. He didn't just play two positions well, he made the old way of categorizing players irrelevant. That's what the full stack data professional does to the old analyst job description. In practical terms, this means the actual business drivers: revenue growth, churn rates, conversion metrics, customer lifetime value, operational efficiency, not vanity metrics that look impressive on a slide but don't connect to anything the CFO actually cares about. If you cannot tie your analysis to a dollar amount, you're just producing art, not business value. One thing you can do is start reading Harvard Business Review case studies, not because they're fun, well, I think they're fun, but because they train your brain to think the way an executive thinks. And here's a specific differentiator: learn to calculate and present ROI. When you walk into a meeting and say, the analysis identified $2.3 million in potential cost savings, that's not an analyst just talking, that is a strategic partner. And strategic partners don't just get paid low money, they get paid top dollar. One of my students came from retail management, and everyone else was telling him, hey, just start at entry level, because he was changing careers. I told him the opposite. His domain knowledge in operations and supply chain was his biggest edge, not something to downplay. We reframed his narrative, built a portfolio of projects around demonstrated business strategy through data, and he landed a BI role paying about $90K a year. He didn't just get there by learning another tool. He got there by proving he understood how the business works. And if you're a career changer, hear this clearly: your past domain knowledge is a competitive weapon most people leave on the table. A teacher who understands education data is a natural fit for an edtech analytical team. The retail manager who knows inventory is ideal for e-commerce BI. Instead of positioning yourself as a generic SQL expert competing against 10,000 other bootcamp graduates who took the same courses, you position yourself as someone specific: a data analyst who understands supply chain, or a BI engineer who speaks healthcare. That specificity pays, because companies value domain expertise they can deploy on day one. All right, quick pause. Now, if you want to land your first job in data analytics and avoid the lengthy mistakes that I did, click the link in the pinned comment where you can find the exact steps that my students use to land their job in data analytics without going back to school. All right, now let's get back to it. Okay. Pillar 4, AI multiplier. This is the pillar everyone is panicking about or completely ignoring, and both reactions miss the point. AI is not coming for your job, it's coming for the person who refuses to use it. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, said nobody needs to learn programming anymore because the new programming language is human language. He's partially right, but the nuance most people miss is that the upskilling required now isn't about replacing technical skills, it's about knowing how to direct, validate, and quality check what AI produces. You need to know what to build and why, because AI handles the how, but it cannot tell you whether the output is correct for your specific business context. Meanwhile, Scott Galloway, who has been warning us that AI is coming for middle management first, says it allows organizations to flatten their layers, with the average supervisor now managing 6 direct reports, double what it was 5 years ago. So the people who thrive own the strategic why and let AI multiply the tactical how. This shift is already happening fast. In the 2025 State of Analytics Engineering report, found that 80% of data practitioners now use AI in their daily workflow, up from 30% the year before. That's a profession reorganizing itself in real time. So the practical application: use AI to draft queries faster, generate first draft visualization ideas, research business context at speed, and accelerate data cleaning. But always layer your own judgment and strategic direction at the top, because AI will confidently hand you the wrong answers that sound authoritative but will be completely wrong. That's where pillars 1 through 3 become your safety net. One of my students demonstrated this with a consulting project for a nonprofit. The data cleaning could have taken a week, but she used AI to help generate the initial scripts and validate output against what the data should look like and had clean data within a couple days. She spent the remaining time building an analysis that blew the client away, not because AI did the thinking, but because it freed her time to actually focus on the part that actually required real human interactions. And here's a broader market picture. AI investment globally is projected to surpass $2 trillion by this year. But Gartner predicts 30% of generative AI projects will be abandoned because of poor data quality and just shaky foundations. Companies are pouring money into AI and discovering why they don't have the infrastructure or human judgment to make it work. That gap between investment and available talent is your opportunity. And the people who can build data systems, analyze outputs, think strategically, and orchestrate AI as a force multiplier is operating where there is almost no competition. This is just a blue ocean. That's a category of one. Okay, again, so what no one is telling you in the space is the people getting hired right now aren't necessarily smarter than you. It's not that they have more time to prepare. They just stop playing the old game that doesn't work anymore. They stop collecting tools and start demonstrating judgment and impact. And they start positioning themselves with precision. And if you want the full in-depth roadmap on exactly how to get from where you are to hired, click this next video.